Hey everybody, it's Minius! I've gone on record as saying I loved Mass Effect 3's multiplayer way too much. My time spent with that was one of the best experiences I've had in gaming.
We have dismissed that claim.
Well, don't. On the surface, the multiplayer doesn't appear like much. You go through 10 waves of enemies with some friends, take care of a couple objectives along the way, extract, and then repeat. That's it. But the multiplayer's charm comes from how diverse the combat is. As more and more characters were added with free DLC, you got more and more ways to play, leading to hundreds, and in the case of some of you, thousands of hours of fun. So it's nothing but good news that multiplayer will be returning for Mass Effect Andromeda, and that's official. We got our first hint of multiplayer in the original Reddit leak, which I'll get to in a bit, but key BioWare staffers have talked about the multiplayer at EA Play and E3 using their current method of vague hints. BioWare Montreal studio director Yanick Roy said a couple things about the multiplayer, mainly that it will be similar to the multiplayer in Mass Effect 3, except he's expecting more freedom, more chaos, and dynamic gameplay. That could be saying a lot, but as I also said, that's pretty vague. We can guess on the specifics by taking quotes from other BioWare staffers. For instance, we know that Mass Effect multiplayer is all about the combat, and the combat is being tweaked a bit to accommodate a more open-world feel. The single player in Andromeda is going to be about exploration, and that changes things. Here's a quote from Mass Effect creative director Mac Walters about combat in Mass Effect Andromeda. I'm going to drop you in the middle so the quote makes more sense. "It's going to be more open world, more freeform, with more choice. Those are all things that have definitely factored into the way we've developed our core gameplay, like our third-person shooting. So far, I can honestly say the combat is far more fluid, far more organic than it's ever been before." Now, combat in Mass Effect 2 and 3 took place in highly structured and somewhat narrow environments with a lot of cover, and the mechanics in those games reflected that. Even a moderate tweak in mechanics might be the biggest difference from Mass Effect 3 multiplayer to Andromeda multiplayer. That right there could give you more freedom. Perhaps the multiplayer maps are bigger and wider in Andromeda to better fit with the new mechanics. That would also give you more freedom. The biggest change in combat that we know about is the addition of the jump pack, which first popped up in the original Reddit leak, then was in the announced trailer, and is now best displayed in the gameplay leak, which I finally have the balls to show you. This jump right here is a major change to combat in Mass Effect, and therefore the multiplayer. Most of you probably have experience with jump packs and shooters, and don't need much of an imagination to visualize how this could change things for the series. Now picture enemies with jump packs, and you might have the more chaos. The multiplayer in Mass Effect 3 could already get pretty chaotic, especially if you're under-geared, but giving the enemies the ability to come at you in roundabout ways certainly would turn up the heat. Spawn points in the original multiplayer were also pretty static and predictable, and maybe the more chaos comes from a dramatically increased number of entry points for enemies, or perhaps enemies can now just drop in right on top of you. These options would increase the difficulty of the multiplayer in Andromeda, and the increased difficulty of Mass Effect 3's multiplayer was one of its best aspects. Put all of this together and you have the more dynamic gameplay that Yanick talked about. Of course, dynamic gameplay could mean a lot of different stuff. It could also be just a marketing phrase. We're forced to speculate at this point.
Damn it! Tell me what I want or I'll blast your virtual ass into actual dust!
One thing that you shouldn't expect is for the multiplayer in Andromeda to connect too strongly to the single player. Playing multiplayer in Andromeda should have no impact on the story of the single player. At least that's what BioWare General Manager Aaron Flynn expects. But there will be some connection. BioWare wants that connection between the two to be more positive. The major Reddit leak from last year mentions a couple of ways the two might be tied. According to that leak, in the single player, you can send out an AI strike team of mercenaries to take on missions while you continue to play the main game. And if they're successful, you'll get experience, currency, and gear. Now this appears to be very similar to the way some war table missions worked in Dragon Age Inquisition. But you can also choose to take these missions on personally with your multiplayer roster of characters. You can take up to 3 other people, assumedly with their multiplayer characters, with you, and the difficulty and rewards will scale depending on the size of your party. I'll quote directly from the Reddit leak since I'm unlikely to explain it better than the direct text. These missions will play out using the next Mass Effect multiplayer's Horde mode. These missions will include a variety of thematically appropriate objectives, like defending a settlement against Ket attacks, or recovering a remnant artifact off a planet before an outlaw gang gets there first. By taking an active role in Strike Team missions, you can earn special single-player rewards, in addition to the usual multiplayer-specific characters, weapons, weapon mods, and pieces of equipment, which can be customized between missions. Additionally, players who join another person's Strike Team mission will receive bonus in-game currency and multiplayer XP for helping others with their missions. This is then followed up by the section entitled Multiplayer Horde Mode, which says, "The next Mass Effect's Horde multiplayer pits you and up to 3 of your friends against waves of enemy troops on various battlefields throughout the galaxy. Players fight together to survive increasingly difficult enemy attacks and accomplish objectives like disabling a bomb near a colony base or assassinating a target. Progress through multiplayer missions to gain XP and earn new multiplayer-specific weapons, characters, weapon mods, and pieces of equipment, which can be customized between matches. Multiplayer play will also earn you Apex funds, in-game currency, which can be used to purchase items and gear in the single-player game." The original Reddit leak, for which there's a link in the description box, has been extremely accurate so far, and if these 2 sections here are correct as well, multiplayer progress in Andromeda can speed up the rate at which you level and acquire gear, but not force the story along the way it did in Mass Effect 3. That text from the Reddit leak is by far the most detailed explanation of what can be expected from Mass Effect's multiplayer that we have, but it's not official. Also keep in mind this leak happened a long time ago, specifically April of 2015, which, by the time things are all said and done, might end up being a full 2 years before the game actually releases. Things can change, specifically how loot, experience, and Apex funds or whatever are supposed to be distributed. But for the most part, it appears that multiplayer in Andromeda is pretty much just a copy and paste of the multiplayer in Mass Effect 3, which I am more than okay with.
I need it.
I'm going to follow up this video with where I want Mass Effect multiplayer to go from here in a couple of weeks, so if you've got desires or fears about Mass Effect Andromeda's multiplayer, be sure to hit up the comments section below. And if you like this video, please give it a like, it really helps out the channel. Keep an eye on Minius GC for more Mass Effect videos, but for now...
I should go.